I'm running a full marathon in North Korea, and if things weren't crazy enough, I'm also American. No foreigners have visited North Korea's capital of Pyongyang in 6 years because the country's been closed since COVID. So, with a once in a lifetime opportunity to interact with locals and be running unmonitored through the city, I flew into North Korea the night before the event. Race morning came and I was so nervous, but I did my best to get locked in because the stadium cutoff time was 3.5 hours. The weather was completely foggy and definitely added to the dystopian vibe. But it was time to head to the stadium, and it didn't take long before there were thousands of North Koreans flooding in to take their seats. All the amateur athletes lined up for the opening ceremony, and the roar as we walked in was unlike anything I've ever experienced. It felt like we were in the Olympics. There was a genuine excitement to see us from the crowd, along with tons of organized chants and claps. Then the 130 pro North Korean runners came out, and they were super muscular. But if we're being honest, I did not see a single smile. I think it's because there was a lot riding on this race field. Everyone's shoes shocked me, as there were no super shoes, just relatively older and flat Adidas or Nikes. The race started, and I was quite promptly dusted. But 5 minutes in, something unusual happened. I didn't record her, but one North Korean girl got dropped from the pack and was almost crying silently as she ran. The emotions really hit me what I was actually doing here and what it meant for the other runners competing that day. I caught onto the tailwind of my speedy Norwegian friend Oliver, but at halfway I started dying and ran alone for the majority of the second half. Running alone through the streets of Pyongyang was a completely surreal feeling, and it's quite likely I'm one of the only ones to truly be alone here with no guide, as it'd be too complicated to organize for every runner. I think this was the moment for me that I couldn't even believe this day was real. Things were going relatively well until mile 22, when not training really started to catch up with me. Things got extremely tough, and I unfortunately ended up having to walk a little bit in the last hour. For many young kids, I was quite likely one of the first white people they'd ever seen. So when I went for high five, some screamed like an alien had just touched me. I was exhausted and delirious at this point, and having citizens of Pyongyang staring at me in this state was pretty strange. I was so slow that everyone left the stadium before I finished, but I got my medal and was very happy to be done in 3:51, under the 4-hour mark, which to me is pretty fast. I think there were many similarities between this and a normal marathon, so this race was a very insightful way to see the people and sports culture of North Korea. Since I didn't train, I unfortunately injured my foot and had to limp the following 4 days on the tour around the city. Some of the other things we did in Pyongyang were wild, and that content's coming soon, but the marathon was probably the coolest side quest of my life.